I came to repay my father's debt, she said. I replied. Then would you like to stay? The colony was small, built on the edge of a barren planet that humans had recently claimed. Dust swirled around the landing pads, carried by faint winds that barely stirred the dry air. The hum of generators and the distant chatter of colonists gave the station life, even in such a lonely corner of space. Cadden, the colony's leader, walked along the main platform, his boots clanging softly against the metal grating. He was a tall man with a strong frame, but his eyes betrayed the exhaustion of someone who had spent years keeping a struggling colony alive. Food shortages, power failures, and communication blackouts with nearby sectors had become routine, and the weight of responsibility pressed on him like the planet's thin atmosphere pressed against the station. As he turned a corner, a figure appeared at the landing bay. Cadden squinted. The shuttle that had just docked had only expected routine supply deliveries, but this traveler was walking unhurriedly, carrying a single small pack and a bundle wrapped in cloth. The woman was young, with sharp eyes that seemed too alert for someone traveling alone. Her clothing was simple but neat, and her boots were worn from long journeys. She moved with a quiet confidence as though every step had a purpose. "Good morning," she said as she approached. Her voice was calm but carried a strange formality. "My name is Leora." Cadden stopped. Something about her tone and posture felt unusual. "Welcome to Aurora Station," he said carefully. "What brings you here? Supplies? Work?" Leora shook her head. "Neither. I have come to repay a debt. My father owed something to this colony many years ago, and I intend to make it right." Cadden's brow furrowed. "A debt? Your father, do you know what he owed?" She nodded. "I know enough, and I know what must be done. I have skills that can help your station survive and grow." Cadden studied her silently. In a settlement like Aurora, strangers were rare, and someone claiming to bring solutions to decades-old problems was almost unheard of. He wondered if this was a con or something more. But there was an honesty in her eyes that he couldn't ignore. "All right," he said finally. "Let's talk, but first the protocol. You'll need to be registered and assigned quarters. We don't usually accept strangers without reason." Leora smiled faintly. "I expected as much. I have no need for luxuries, just a place to stay and a chance to work." Cadden motioned for her to follow. As they walked through the station, he noticed how her eyes took in everything. The pipes running along the ceiling, the hum of generators, the small garden where colonists grew their vegetables. She seemed fascinated by every detail, yet she did not speak unnecessarily. "The colony has been having problems," Cadden began cautiously. "Our energy cores are unstable, food production is limited, and we've had repeated communication blackouts. Many solutions have been tried, but nothing has worked consistently." Leora nodded slowly. "I have studied similar systems. My father built and maintained energy cores before. I can help stabilize them, and I can improve the growth cycles in your gardens. If allowed, I can repair your communication systems too." Cadden paused. No outsider had ever offered such help without asking for something in return. And why help us? Why repay a debt now after all these years? "My father made mistakes," she said softly. "Mistakes that caused others to suffer. I cannot change the past, but I can change the future. I owe your colony that much." Her words had a quiet weight to them, and Cadden felt the stirrings of hope he had not felt in years. Maybe, just maybe, this stranger could help them overcome the crises that had become their daily reality. "You'll need a place to stay tonight," Cadden said. "Tomorrow, you can begin assessing the station's systems." "I will be ready," she replied. As Cadden led her to the guest quarters, he felt a strange mix of caution and curiosity. He had learned long ago that hope in the outer colonies was fragile, easily broken by mistakes or betrayal. But something about Leora suggested she was different. The quarters were small but functional: a bed, a desk, a window overlooking the barren plains outside the station. Leora unpacked her things quickly, revealing tools and devices that were unfamiliar to Cadden. Small, intricate instruments, books with diagrams, and devices with blinking lights that suggested knowledge beyond what the colony currently possessed. "That's quite a collection," Cadden said, trying to mask his surprise. "These are my tools," Leora explained. "I have studied my father's work and improved upon it. I can make what is old work better, faster, and more efficiently." Cadden nodded slowly. "We'll see. Tomorrow you will start with the energy cores. If you can help stabilize them, the colony will owe you more than your debt repayment." Leora inclined her head. "I intend to help beyond repayment. If allowed, I will stay and contribute fully to the colony's survival." Her words hung in the air. Staying in Aurora Station was not a small decision. Life on the edge of space was harsh. Supplies were limited, storms could destroy equipment, and every day was a struggle to survive. Yet, Leora spoke as if she already belonged. Night fell over the station, and Cadden returned to his quarters, thinking about the stranger who had arrived unannounced. Something about her made him feel that perhaps the colony's fortunes were about to change. He could not yet know how much she would affect their lives, or how deeply human ingenuity and courage could reshape their future. The next morning, the station awoke to the sounds of activity. Leora was already at the energy core facility, examining the machinery with precision. Sparks flew as she tested circuits, her hands moving confidently. Colonists gathered around, curious and skeptical, but Leora spoke to them with patience and clarity, explaining each step in simple terms. One by one, the colonists began to see what Cadden had suspected from the first moment he met her. She was not just another traveler. She was a force of human skill, determination, and knowledge. By midday, the first signs of improvement appeared. The energy cores ran more smoothly. Lights that had flickered for months now glowed steadily. The air recycling system operated more efficiently. A murmur of hope spread through the colony, something long missing in Aurora Station. Cadden watched from the control room, a faint smile forming on his face. He could feel it in his bones. This was only the beginning. If Leora succeeded in her tasks, the colony might not only survive but thrive. And she had not even begun to speak of the gardens or the communication arrays. As the sun set again over the barren plains, Cadden returned to the landing bay. Leora was there, looking out at the horizon. "You've made a good start," he said. "I intend to do more than start," she replied. "I intend to finish. Your colony will not remember the past debts, it will remember the future we build together." Cadden nodded. He had a feeling she was right. In the cold vastness of space, where survival was never guaranteed, one human's courage and intelligence could spark hope for an entire colony. And somehow, he knew that this stranger who had come to repay a debt might just stay and change everything. As night fell, the stars above Aurora Station twinkled brightly, and the small colony seemed a little less lonely. A debt had brought a stranger here, but it was human ingenuity, bravery, and heart that might save them all. The morning air of Aurora Station carried a quiet hum, the kind that spoke of machinery working tirelessly to keep humans alive on a lonely planet. The colony was alive with activity, but it was a fragile life. Every system, every process depended on careful attention. A single mistake could cascade into disaster. Leora entered the energy core facility, her small bag slung over one shoulder. Sparks of light danced across the control panels as she walked past them, her sharp eyes scanning each display with the precision of someone who had seen far more than this small station had ever hoped to hold. Colonists lingered at the edges, whispering among themselves. Some were skeptical of the young woman who had arrived with nothing but a promise to repay a debt. Others were curious, their hopes stirring at the thought of change. Cadden followed quietly, watching her work. "You'll need help," he said softly. Leora turned, her eyes meeting his. I can manage alone for the first checks, but I will need assistance when we begin the full repair. Cadden nodded. Then you will have them, pick who you trust. I'll make sure they follow your instructions. She smiled faintly. Trust is earned in work, not words. Her first task was to stabilize the primary energy core, the heart of Aurora Station. It was a massive structure, a labyrinth of wires, conduits, and humming machinery. The core had been patched many times, each repair only temporary. Leora ran her hands over the surface, feeling the vibrations, listening to the hum, almost as if she could hear the machine speaking. She began with the diagnostics, pressing buttons and reading readouts. This core is unstable because of two main issues, she explained to the gathering colonists. The first is the heat distribution system. It is overloaded and unbalanced. The second is the secondary regulators. They are too old to maintain efficiency. One colonist, a young engineer named Jerk, stepped forward. We tried replacing the regulators last month. They failed within hours. Leora nodded. I will show you a method that has worked in other colonies. You must follow each step precisely, and we must work together. Human skill and attention will succeed where machines alone have failed. The colonists exchanged uncertain looks. Machines had often failed them, but humans. Could humans truly do what the automated systems could not? Leora smiled. It is time to try. We begin with the heat distribution. The next several hours were a whirlwind of activity. Leora directed the colonists with calm authority, demonstrating techniques and correcting errors before they could cause harm. Sparks flew from tools, the hum of the core grew steadier, and slowly, bit by bit, the machinery responded. Cadden observed from the control room, silently amazed. He had expected effort, perhaps a small improvement, but not this. The core's output became steady, the fluctuating energy levels smoothing into balance. By midday, the first signs of real success appeared. Leora stepped back, her hands streaked with grease, her face calm but glowing with quiet satisfaction. We are making progress, she announced. But there is more to do. The secondary regulators must be upgraded, and I will need more assistance for that. A murmur of approval rose among the colonists. For the first time in years, it felt like a real solution was within reach. Cadden approached her. You've done more than I expected, but there's still the matter of the food systems and communication arrays. Those are even more delicate, Leora nodded. One step at a time, first stability, then growth, then connection. We cannot save what we cannot maintain. By late afternoon, she gathered the volunteers for the next phase, repairing the secondary regulators. Jerk, the young engineer, was eager but nervous. I have never done anything like this, he admitted. You will, Leora replied gently. We will learn together. That is the human way. Hours passed as she taught the colonists the subtle adjustments needed, showing them how to balance energy flows, tighten conduits without damaging sensitive components, and monitor readings for unexpected fluctuations. Her teaching was patient but firm. Mistakes were corrected immediately, not scolded, but learned from. Even the skeptical workers began to see something extraordinary, that humans could adapt, improve, and overcome systems that had been considered impossible to fix. Leora's methods were simple, yet they required ingenuity, patience, and cooperation, qualities machines could never replicate fully. As night fell, the core facility glowed softly, humming steadily. Leora wiped her hands on a cloth and stepped back, letting the colonists admire their work. You've done it, Cadden said, a smile breaking across his face. The core is stable. Leora shook her head slightly. Stable, yes, but stability alone is not survival. Tomorrow, we begin the gardens and the communication arrays. Humans must feed themselves and speak to the universe if we are to thrive. The next morning, the station was alive with a new energy. Leora led the colonists to the gardens, small but vital patches of green in the otherwise gray settlement. The hydroponic systems were outdated and inefficient, and the crops had struggled under irregular water and nutrient supply. This system is simple, Leora explained, but it is mismanaged. Water cycles are off, nutrients are uneven, and light distribution is poor. With some small changes, we can double your yield. The colonists listened carefully. Leora's instructions were clear, simple, and practical. She guided them in adjusting water flows, rearranging light panels, and improving soil enrichment. Every step was hands-on, every correction immediate, and every improvement measurable. By evening, the gardens looked healthier than they had in years. Fresh green shoots emerged where wilted plants had struggled. Colonists smiled as they inspected the results. For the first time, the possibility of abundance, rather than mere survival, felt real. Cadden watched the progress quietly. Leora had not only repaired machines, she had repaired hope. The colony had begun to believe that humans, with skill and determination, could overcome the difficulties of their environment. The final challenge for the day was the communication array. Aurora Station had lost contact with nearby sectors for months, leaving them isolated and vulnerable. Leora approached the system carefully, examining the tangle of wires, antennas, and circuit boards. "This is delicate work," she told the gathered colonists, "but it can be restored. Humans must adapt, observe, and act. Machines cannot replace intuition." She demonstrated each step, repairing circuits, realigning antennas, and testing signal strength. The colonists followed her lead, learning from her patient instruction. Slowly, the blinking lights on the control panel stabilized, and a faint signal reached the station. A voice crackled through the speakers, a message from a nearby colony asking about supplies and weather reports. The colonists cheered, their joy echoing across the facility. Aurora Station was no longer isolated. Cadden felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Leora had not only fulfilled part of the debt she claimed to repay, she had given the colony something far greater: hope, unity, and a glimpse of human potential. That night, as the settlement settled into quiet routines, Cadden found Leora standing outside the Energy Core facility, gazing at the stars. "You've done well today," he said softly. She turned to him, a faint smile on her face. "The work is not done. But we have taken the first steps. Humans must always look forward, never back. That is how we repay debts, correct mistakes, and survive." Cadden nodded. "I believe you. I think you might even stay after all this." Leora's eyes met his, serious and calm. "Perhaps. But I will stay only if the colony allows humans to continue learning and growing together. That is more important than any personal debt." Cadden smiled faintly. "Then stay. If you choose, you are welcome here." And for the first time, Leora allowed herself a quiet relief. She had arrived to repay a debt, but she had already discovered something more valuable, a place where her skills, her heart, and her determination could truly matter. Above Aurora Station, the stars shone cold and distant, yet for the first time in many cycles, the colony beneath them glimmered with life, hope, and the promise of a human future. The challenges were far from over, but Leora's arrival had changed everything. And Cadden knew, without a doubt, that humanity, brave, clever, and unyielding, would meet every challenge ahead. The morning air over Aurora Station was sharp with cold, and the faint light of the twin suns reflected off the metallic structures in a soft, golden haze. The colony had begun to hum with a new energy. The energy core was stable, the gardens were thriving, and communication with nearby sectors had been restored. Yet beneath this success, Cadden knew that space was unforgiving, and one unexpected event could undo all their progress. Leora arrived at the station's observatory, her eyes scanning the horizon. She had spent the night reviewing system reports, planning her next steps. The solar flares from the nearby star had been unusually active, and sensors indicated that a strong burst was expected to pass near the colony within hours. Such flares could disrupt power systems, fry sensitive circuits, and damage communication arrays. "This is no ordinary flare," Leora said as she entered the control room. Her voice carried calm authority, though the tension in her eyes betrayed her concern. "If we do not take immediate precautions, we could lose our energy cores and communication systems, and the crops might be affected as well." Cadden moved beside her. "How bad is it?" "Potentially catastrophic," she replied. "But humans can prepare. Machines alone will not suffice. We need skill, coordination, and careful timing. Everyone must follow instructions precisely." Word of the solar flare spread quickly, and the colonists gathered in the main hall. Fear rippled through the group. Though the colony had survived the harsh environment for years, the threat of natural disasters was always a shadow over their lives. Leora stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "This is our test, not just of machines, but of human ingenuity. We can survive this flare, but only if we work together. Each of you will have a role, and each role is important. Trust in your training and in each other." Jerk, the young engineer, swallowed nervously. "We've never faced anything like this. What if we fail?" Leora placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Failure is not an option, but even if we struggle, we learn. That is the strength of humans. We adapt, we solve, and we survive." The first step was securing the energy cores. Leora led the colonists to the facility, instructing them to check every connection, tighten circuits, and reinforce shielding. Sparks flew from tools as everyone worked together, guided by her calm, precise commands. Hours passed. The flare was approaching faster than the sensors initially indicated. The hum of machinery grew louder, almost as if the station itself sensed the impending storm. Leora's hands moved with speed and accuracy, adjusting circuits and recalibrating energy flows. Colonists followed her lead, their confidence growing with each successful repair. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the station. One of the secondary regulators was overheating. Smoke began to rise from a vent. Panic threatened to spread among the workers, but Leora's voice cut through clearly. "Stay calm, move to safe positions, and follow my instructions." She worked quickly, guiding the colonists to contain the overheating unit, rerouting power and cooling the system. Within minutes, the smoke cleared and the regulator stabilized. "You see," Leora said, turning to the anxious colonists, "humans notice details machines cannot. We react, adapt, and solve problems in ways that no algorithm can predict." The next task was the gardens. Leora led a team to secure the hydroponic systems, reinforcing water lines and adjusting nutrient flows to withstand the electromagnetic interference from the flare. Colonists worked alongside her, learning to handle delicate equipment under pressure. Finally, they focused on the communication arrays. The flare's electromagnetic pulse could scramble signals and fry circuits. Leora instructed colonists to shield sensitive devices with layers of metal and to recalibrate antennas just before the flare hit. Every second was critical. As the first waves of solar radiation struck, the lights in the station flickered. The hum of the energy core wavered and alarms rang intermittently. But thanks to Leora's guidance and the colonists' efforts, the station held. Hours passed like minutes, the tension in the control room thick enough to taste. Leora checked each system repeatedly, ensuring that no damage had occurred. Slowly, the flare passed. Aurora Station had survived intact. The colonists erupted in quiet relief, exchanging smiles, nods, and congratulations. They had faced a threat that could have destroyed their home, and they had succeeded. Leora looked around at them, her face calm but her eyes gleaming with pride. "You see what we can do together," she said. "Machines help, but humans lead. We solve problems that seem impossible. We endure, adapt, and overcome." Cadden approached her, his expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "I didn't know you could handle all of that alone." "I didn't do it alone," Leora replied, gesturing toward the colonists. "Humans did this. Each person here followed instructions, learned quickly, and acted with courage. That is why we survived. That is why humans will always endure, even on the edge of the stars. The colonists began to clean up and inspect equipment for any lingering damage. Leora moved among them, offering guidance, answering questions, and ensuring that each system was fully operational. The flare had tested their skills and teamwork, and they had passed. That evening, the settlement gathered in the main hall. For the first time in years, there was laughter, conversation, and genuine relief. Aurora Station had survived a natural disaster that could have destroyed everything, and the colonists had proven their resilience. Cadden took a moment to speak. Today, we faced something that could have ended us, but we did not fail. We survived because we worked together, because we trusted each other, and because we learned from someone willing to teach us. Leora has shown us that our strength is not just in our machines, but in our human spirit. Leora stood quietly beside him, allowing the colonists to celebrate. She had come to repay a debt, but she realized that the debt she was truly repaying was not the one her father had left behind. It was the debt to humanity itself, the debt to believe in human potential, ingenuity, and resilience. As the celebrations wound down, she stepped outside, gazing at the stars above. The solar flare had passed, but its reminder lingered. Space was unforgiving and threats were always near. Yet humans had survived once again, and Leora felt a renewed sense of purpose. Cadden joined her, his eyes reflecting the distant suns. "You've changed things here," he said softly. "I only guided them," she replied. "They changed themselves. Humans have always had this strength, even when they do not see it. They endure, they create, and they rise to challenges. That is what makes us human." A soft breeze carried dust across the landing pads, and for a moment the two stood in silence, listening to the distant hum of the station, alive and steady after the storm. Tomorrow they would face new challenges, repairs, expansions, and unforeseen problems that always came with life on the edge of explored space. But tonight, they had survived the trial by fire, and the colony's hope had grown brighter than any star in the sky. And in that quiet moment, Leora understood something she had not expected when she arrived. Repaying a debt was not just about correcting past mistakes. It was about building a future, inspiring others, and proving that even in the most isolated, fragile corners of the universe, humans could endure anything. The stars shone cold and distant above Aurora Station, yet beneath them, the settlement glimmered with life, courage, and the promise of human ingenuity. And for Leora, the journey had only just begun. The morning on Aurora Station arrived quietly, but the energy in the colony was anything but calm. Since the solar flare, the settlement had been alive with purpose. Colonists moved with renewed confidence, their work guided by a mix of human skill and Leora's steady leadership. The energy cores hummed smoothly, gardens thrived, and communication systems were fully operational. The threat of isolation and failure, once a shadow over their lives, had begun to fade. Cadden walked through the main plaza, observing the colonists as they went about their work. He could not ignore the pride swelling in his chest. The people were changing, not because of machines, but because of a young woman who had arrived with nothing but determination and knowledge. Leora was already at the Energy Core facility, teaching a small group of engineers how to perform regular diagnostics. Sparks flickered from the tools, and the low hum of the core resonated through the room. She moved with confidence, explaining every step in simple terms and correcting errors gently but firmly. "Check the regulators again," she instructed, pointing to the secondary units. Even a small imbalance can grow into a large problem if ignored. Jerk, now more confident after their previous trials, nodded. "I understand. I'll adjust it." The other engineers watched quietly, impressed by his transformation. Leora's guidance had not only repaired the systems, it had taught the colonists to trust themselves and each other. Cadden entered the room smiling. You've done more than repair machines, Leora. You've repaired confidence too. She glanced at him, a faint smile on her face. Humans have that strength already. I only remind them to use it. Word of Leora's successes had spread quickly through the colony. By midday, the settlement gathered in the main hall for an impromptu meeting. Cadden stood before the crowd, clearing his throat. Fellow colonists, he began, his voice strong and warm, we have faced challenges that once seemed impossible. We have survived storms, repaired systems that failed time and again, and strengthened our home here on this planet. And we have done it not alone, but together. The crowd murmured, nodding and smiling. Leora stood quietly to the side, observing the colony's reaction. She had never sought recognition, but she realized that today, her guidance had inspired something larger than herself. Cadden continued, I want to formally recognize someone who arrived to repay a debt, but has given us far more than that. Someone who has reminded us of the power of human skill, ingenuity, and courage. He gestured toward Leora. Leora has shown us what humans can achieve when we act together. She has stabilized our energy systems, improved our food production, restored communication with nearby colonies, and guided each of you to perform beyond what you thought possible. For this, we owe her gratitude and our trust. The colonists erupted in applause, cheering and clapping. Leora felt a flush of warmth but remained composed. Recognition was not her goal, but she understood the importance of trust and unity in this fragile colony. One of the senior engineers stepped forward. Leora, your methods have taught us more than any manual or automated system ever could. We've learned to think, to adapt, and to work as a team. You've given us tools we didn't even know we had. Leora nodded. That is the true reward. Humans working together can achieve far more than individuals or machines alone. You have all shown me your strength, and I am proud to work beside you. After the meeting, Cadden and Leora walked through the station, observing the improvements firsthand. Colonists were repairing old equipment, adjusting irrigation systems, and running tests on communication arrays. There was a sense of order and purpose, yet also of creativity. Humans were no longer simply maintaining systems, they were improving them. You've done something remarkable here, Cadden said quietly. You've not only repaired what was broken, but you've given them a vision of what's possible. I only guided them, Leora replied. They discovered the vision themselves. Humans have always had the ability to grow beyond their limits. Sometimes, all they need is someone to show the path and let them walk it. As they passed the gardens, Cadden noticed how vibrant the plants had become. Rows of leafy greens, bright herbs, and small fruiting plants were thriving under Leora's adjustments. Colonists moved between the plots, carefully tending to each plant, speaking softly to each other about techniques and improvements. These gardens will sustain the colony, Leora said. But more than that, they show what humans can achieve with attention, patience, and care. Food, energy, communication, these are the foundations. The rest will follow if humans continue to learn and adapt. Later in the day, Leora returned to her quarters, where she reviewed blueprints and system diagrams. Her mind was always active, thinking of ways to improve, to innovate, to prepare the colony for challenges she could foresee and those she could not. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Cadden entered carrying 2 cups of warm tea. You need a break, he said gently, handing her a cup. Even the best problem solvers must rest. Leora smiled faintly. Thank you, but there is still much to do. The colony can improve in efficiency, resource management, and expansion. I do not want to waste time. Cadden sat beside her. You've done more than enough. The colonists are learning. They trust you. That is more valuable than any system repair. She nodded, understanding his point, but her mind was already moving ahead. Trust is fragile, she said. We must reinforce it every day. Actions matter more than words. Tomorrow, I will teach them a new method for water distribution and nutrient cycling. It will improve crop yield by at least 20%. Cadden raised his eyebrows. Ambitious, but I know you can do it. The following morning, Leora gathered the colonists in the garden facility. She explained the new techniques in simple, clear steps. Everyone listened intently, eager to learn. The methods were practical, yet required careful attention and teamwork. Hours passed as colonists implemented the changes. Water lines were adjusted, nutrient mixtures balanced, and sunlight distribution optimized. Each improvement was immediate and measurable. The plants responded quickly, their growth accelerating. Colonists began to cheer as they saw the tangible results of their efforts. "It is amazing," one of the gardeners said, wiping sweat from her brow. "I never imagined we could make such a difference in such a short time." Leora smiled. "Humans can do incredible things when they work together. Machines can assist, but it is human creativity and determination that drive progress. That is what I hoped to show when I arrived." By evening, the station's gardens were thriving like never before. Energy systems hummed steadily, and communication arrays buzzed with messages from nearby colonies. Aurora Station was no longer simply surviving, it was growing. Cadden observed the improvements quietly, a sense of pride swelling within him. "You've done more than repay a debt," he said to Leora as they walked through the station. "You've given this colony hope, knowledge, and a future." "And they have given me something," Leora replied. "A chance to belong. I came to repay a debt, but I have found something far more valuable, a community that trusts me, works with me, and believes in human potential." As night fell, the twin suns disappeared below the horizon, leaving the stars twinkling above Aurora Station. The settlement glimmered with lights, warmth, and life. The colony had faced danger, learned to work together, and emerged stronger than before. And at the heart of it all, Leora stood, not as a stranger, but as a part of the community she had come to serve. In the quiet hours before sleep, Leora reviewed the station's plans once more. The work was far from complete. Expansion, resource management, and preparation for unforeseen threats awaited. But she knew one truth. Humanity, with skill, courage, and determination, could meet every challenge. And as long as they trusted themselves and each other, no obstacle was too great. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, Aurora Station rested in quiet confidence, ready for whatever the universe might send. And for Leora, the realization was clear. She had come to repay a debt, but she had found her place and her purpose among the stars. The morning light spilled across Aurora Station, catching the metallic edges of the settlement and reflecting in the vibrant green of the gardens. Life had returned to the colony, but it was no longer the fragile, struggling community it had once been. The energy cores hummed steadily, crops thrived, and communication signals pulsed through the station like lifeblood. The settlement was alive, resilient, and full of purpose. Leora walked through the main plaza, her eyes sweeping across the bustling activity. Children played near the hydroponic gardens, colonists carried supplies to the new workshops, and engineers worked efficiently on repairs and upgrades. Everywhere she looked, she saw human determination and ingenuity at work. The debt she had come to repay was now a distant memory. What mattered was the future she was helping build. Cadden approached her, his face calm but carrying the weight of leadership. "You've done more than anyone could have imagined," he said. "The colony is thriving. We've survived disasters, we've repaired our systems, and we've learned to work together. You could leave now and be proud of what you've accomplished." Leora shook her head. "I did not come here for pride. I came to repay a debt. But I have discovered something far more important. This colony, these people, they have shown me what humans can do when we work together. I want to continue helping them." Cadden's eyes softened. "Then stay. The colony is yours as much as it is ours. You've earned a place here." A gentle breeze carried the faint scent of the gardens, and for a moment, Leora allowed herself to feel the weight of relief. She had arrived a stranger, seeking to repay a father's mistakes, and she was leaving with purpose, belonging, and a new home among people who trusted her. The next days were filled with continued work, but now it was different. Colonists no longer merely followed instructions, they innovated. Inspired by Leora's guidance, engineers devised new energy storage systems. Gardeners experimented with crop rotations that maximized yields, and communication operators improved the signals to cover more distant sectors. Every effort was a testament to human creativity and resilience. Leora worked alongside them, teaching, guiding, and learning in return. She introduced a system of shared knowledge, where discoveries were documented, shared, and improved collectively. Mistakes were no longer failures, they were lessons, and each lesson strengthened the colony. One afternoon, Cadden found her in the Energy Core facility, examining a new set of stabilizers. "The colony has never operated this smoothly," he said. "You've given them confidence, knowledge, and a vision, but there's more work to be done." Leora looked at him, her eyes calm and determined. "Yes, there is always more work. We must plan for expansion, for resource shortages, and for emergencies we cannot yet foresee. But the foundation is strong. Humans can solve these problems if we continue to learn and cooperate." Cadden nodded. "And they will because of you. You've shown them that no challenge is too great when humans work together." As days turned into weeks, Leora became a central figure in the colony, not as a leader who commanded, but as a teacher, a guide, and a symbol of human potential. She mentored young engineers, inspired the gardeners, and trained communication operators to innovate rather than simply maintain. Under her guidance, the colony transformed from a fragile settlement into a thriving hub of human ingenuity. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Leora walked to the observation deck. The stars above twinkled in the clear sky, and the soft hum of the settlement filled the air. Colonists moved below, repairing equipment, tending gardens, and carrying out their daily work. The settlement was alive, and it was human in every sense of the word. Cadden joined her, handing her a cup of warm tea. "You've changed everything here," he said softly. "I've guided them," Leora replied, taking the cup. "But they've changed themselves. Humans have a strength that is easy to overlook but impossible to ignore once it is recognized. I've only shown them a path, they walked it themselves." Cadden smiled. "Do you regret coming here?" Leora shook her head. "No, I came to repay a debt, but I found something far more valuable, a community that trusts me, challenges me, and inspires me. I could not leave now, not when there is still work to do, and not when there is still so much to build together." The next morning, the colony held a small ceremony. Cadden spoke to the gathered colonists, acknowledging the hard work, perseverance, and ingenuity that had carried them through recent challenges. But the final words were for Leora. "Today, we celebrate not only our survival but our growth," Cadden announced. "And we celebrate the person who has shown us the true strength of humanity. Leora came to repay a debt, and in doing so, she reminded us that humans are capable of more than we often believe. She has shown us hope, courage, and vision. She has earned a permanent place in Aurora Station. Leora, the colony thanks you and welcomes you as one of our own." The colonists cheered, their voices filling the settlement with warmth and energy. Leora felt a quiet happiness, the kind that comes from knowing one has made a difference. She had repaid her father's debt, yes, but she had also created a new legacy, one built on human skill, trust, and collaboration. Days passed with continued improvements. Leora worked on advanced irrigation systems for the gardens, helping the colony increase food production by nearly 50%. She guided engineers in creating automated but human-monitored systems for the energy cores, blending machine precision with human adaptability. And she helped establish a communication network that allowed Aurora Station to coordinate with distant settlements, forming a small but growing human network in the stars. Through it all, Leora's presence was a steady force. Colonists no longer relied solely on instructions from machines or distant headquarters. They relied on themselves, guided by the lessons she had shared. She had taught them not just to survive, but to innovate, to trust, and to take pride in what humans could accomplish. One afternoon, Jerk approached her with a small device in hand. "I've been working on something," he said, a proud smile on his face. "I think it will improve the energy core efficiency even more." Leora examined the device carefully. "You designed this?" "Yes," he replied. "I followed the principles you taught us. It's not perfect, but I think it works." She smiled warmly. "It works, and more importantly, you learn to trust your own skills. That is what makes humans stronger than any machine." Cadden observed from a distance, seeing the colony thrive under her guidance. He realized that Leora had given them more than repairs and instructions. She had given them belief in themselves. That belief, he knew, was what would carry them into the future. Weeks later, the colony held a festival to celebrate their progress. The gardens were lush, energy systems hummed steadily, and messages from neighboring settlements brought news of shared projects and collaboration. Leora walked among the colonists, smiling at the laughter, the teamwork, and the pride in their accomplishments. Cadden found her near the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if you hadn't come here?" he asked. Leora shook her head. "No, I came to repay a debt, but I found something far more meaningful, a community that inspires me, challenges me, and trusts me. I would not trade this for anything." "And you will stay?" Cadden asked, his voice soft but full of meaning. "Yes," Leora said without hesitation. "I will stay. Aurora Station is no longer just a place to repay a debt. It is a place to build a future, and that future is human, strong, and limitless." The stars above twinkled brightly, reflecting the quiet triumph below. Aurora Station had faced storms, threats, and uncertainty, yet it endured. And it endured not because of machines or luck or circumstance, but because humans, guided by determination, intelligence, and collaboration, chose to rise above every challenge. Leora stood beside Cadden, looking at the settlement she had helped transform. The gardens flourished, the energy cores thrummed steadily, and communication arrays connected them to the wider universe. The colony was alive, thriving, and full of hope. She had arrived to repay a debt, but she had left a legacy far greater than she could have imagined. The people of Aurora Station had learned to trust themselves, to innovate, and to work together. Humanity had proven its resilience once again, and Leora knew that as long as humans face challenges with courage, ingenuity, and heart, no obstacle was too great. And so, under the cold light of distant stars, Aurora Station glimmered, a small but shining testament to the power of humans. Leora took a deep breath, feeling the quiet satisfaction of belonging. She had found her place among the people she had come to serve. And in that place, she saw the promise of a future built on human determination, creativity, and hope. The journey that had begun with a debt had become something far more profound, a story of survival, growth, and the limitless potential of humanity among the stars.